patuloy na katatagan. Climate change is not a typhoon that visits your country once or twice a year, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte said in his speech during the Asia-Pacific Healthy Islands Conference 2018 in Davao City. President Duterte, in his 2018 State of the Nation address, stressed the urgency for the Philippine government to undertake initiatives to reduce our vulnerabilities to natural hazards and bolster our resilience. Mga kalamidad ng nakaraang isang taon. In September 2018, Typhoon Ompong inflicted damage to agriculture and infrastructure amounting to over 33 billion pesos. Hundreds of thousands of families were affected and hundreds of thousands of houses were damaged. The onslaught claimed lives, people were injured, and there were recorded missing. Tropical Depression Usman also brought damage to agriculture and infrastructure, amounting to 5.4 billion pesos, affected hundreds of thousands of families, and damaged thousands of houses. Many lives were lost. Incidents of injury and missing people were also reported. 9 other tropical cyclones have cost billions of pesos of damage to agriculture and infrastructure. They also brought over 1 million of affected families and cost of damages to thousands of houses. In April 2019 alone, 7 recorded earthquakes were experienced in several parts of the country, affecting families and damaging structures as the 6.1 magnitude earthquake struck Luzon. Drought and dry spell due to El Niño left us also huge damages to agriculture. Several local government units were declared under state of calamity. Maagap na pagtugon. The President has adopted a hands-on approach to the government's rescue and relief operations during natural calamities, displaying the trait of malasakit, which the Filipinos have been known for. President Duterte conducted personal visits to calamity-affected communities. Over 600 million pesos were made available for the search, rescue, and relief operations, as well as rehabilitation of affected areas. Around 400 million pesos were spent for the immediate rehabilitation of communities affected by Typhoon Ompong and Tropical Depression Usman, restoring normalcy in the daily lives of affected families. Kaakibat sa pagbangon. To assist communities affected by hazards and risks to get back on their feet, the government provides livelihood support, housing assistance, loans, and insurance. Billions of pesos worth of assistance were given to over 1 million beneficiaries nationwide under the Sustainable Livelihood Program, Emergency Shelter Assistance, Relief Assistance, and Cash for Work program of the government. Thousands of smallholder farmers and fisher folks were granted 2 billion pesos worth of loan assistance through 200 lending conduits.
Malaki po ang tulong ng PLI sa pamilya ko at saka sa aking para sa pagsasaka ko dahil malit ang interest at saka isa pa binigay sa akin yung pera lahat na ginamit ko sa pagsasaka ko.
2 million farmers were provided with 100 billion pesos worth of insurance for their crops, fisheries, and livestock. 5 billion pesos worth of permanent housing were provided to thousands of calamity victims. 6,000 beneficiaries were provided with materials assistance amounting to 31 million pesos. Kaalaman at kahandaan. In response to the President's call for more proactive measures, government offices also veered towards new inventions, including the adoption of state-of-the-art technologies and skills enhancement. These ensure appropriate preparations for disasters to avoid similar devastating impacts. Early warning systems are continuously being established to improve the accuracy of weather forecasting and monitoring and issue timely warning updates. These are 3 Doppler radars and 8 high-frequency Doppler radars. 53 automatic weather stations had been installed nationwide to provide near real-time data from remote areas even without human labor, and 28 lighting detection system to enhance the monitoring and tracking of weather disturbances. The first borehole-type seismic monitoring station in Tanawan City, Batangas was commissioned to improve data quality on seismic information under the National Volcano Monitoring and Warning Program. One local sea level monitoring station was established in Dumaguete City, Negros Oriental, to cover the eastern coasts for distant tsunami from the Pacific region and active local trenches. Groundwater resources and vulnerability assessments were conducted in 24 cities and municipalities to protect their groundwater aquifers. Vulnerability and risk assessment was conducted in 202 cities, municipalities to determine the risk exposure of communities, infrastructure, and road networks to flooding and rain-induced landslide hazards. Funds were provided for the full operation of the Program Management Office of the Earthquake Resiliency in Greater Metro Manila area, which has been tasked to ensure the immediate availability of lifelines such as food, water, and shelter in case of a major quake. Included in the Earthquake Resiliency Program for the Greater Metro Manila area are the enhancement of design standards for government structures, assessment of critical government-owned structures, and repairs, rehabilitation and retrofitting of vital bridges and road linkages in and out of the National Capital Region. Paglilinis at rehabilitasyon. In President Duterte's third year, the government ramped up efforts to conserve Boracay Island, other prime tourist destinations, and most recently, the Manila Bay. Political will, effective coordination among agencies and local government units, and support from private sector and communities play significant role. Establishments were issued demolition and closure orders for failure to connect with sewage treatment facility and comply with road easement requirement. Local officials were charged with gross neglect of duty. After the 6-month closure of Boracay, which the President described as a cesspool, rehabilitation efforts were intensively implemented. Regaining Boracay Island as a paradise is our gift to present and future generations, especially for Ati children. Massive cleanup and rehabilitation were also embarked in other prime tourist destinations such as El Nido and Coron in Palawan, Panglao in Bohol, and Puerto Galera in Mindoro. More than a decade after the issuance of the writ of continuing mandamus by the Supreme Court directing 10 government agencies to clean up, rehabilitate, and preserve the Manila Bay, the government is finally taking a decisive move to take on the gargantuan task. The government commenced the rehabilitation of the Baywalk. Initial desilting activities covered approximately the stretch from the Manila Yacht Club breakwater to the U.S. Embassy. 1,000 cubic meters of silt were removed. The cities and barangays play a crucial role in the battle for Manila Bay. They were rallied to strictly enforce the provisions of the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act, particularly on waste segregation and disposal.
Dito pa lang, maglinis na kami sa Tulyahan River para hindi na po tumuloy sa Manila Bay ang mga basura. Mayroon po magandang layunin ang ating gobyerno para sa kalinisan.
Maganda po ang pakiramdam kasi po kahit tumingin po kayo, hindi maano po sa mata dahil halos sa malinis na ang tingnan. Hindi katulad dati, tumpok-tumpok po yung basura kahit saan kayo makakita, may basura.
Thousands of volunteers were mobilized to clean up all rivers and tributaries directly draining to Manila Bay. Within 3 months, portions of Manila Bay area have improved in terms of scattered solid waste debris. The areas of the bay along Rojas Boulevard, once filled with solid wastes, are now being visited and enjoyed by locals. Commercial establishments were inspected. Of these, 276,907 were found compliant. Notices of violations and cease and desist orders were issued to non-compliant establishments for water pollution. Several structures within the 3 to 10 meter legal easements along the Pasig River system were relocated. Over 200 informal settler families were also relocated to Caloocan and Cavite. Private properties encroaching the 3 to 10 meter legal easements within the Pasig River system were dismantled. Pangangalaga ng likas yaman at kapaligiran. Building resilience to climate change through adaptive management of environment and natural resources is continuously being carried out by the government. Multiple strategies have been used together for greater impact. Significant progress on the implementation of various initiatives was achieved. For the past year, more than 100,000 hectares were planted and over 100 million seedlings produced. The denuded and degraded forest land is reduced by 1.71%. The Coastal and Marine Environmental Management Program contributes towards reducing the negative impacts of climate change variability. Almost 200,000 hectares of coastal habitats were assessed and mapped to identify vulnerability to pressures and drivers. Biodiversity-friendly enterprises were supported to encourage economic development with an enhanced National Integrated Protected Area System. Ecotourism sites development helps protect natural habitats and provides livelihood to the communities. Millions of pesos of income were generated from the 58 ecotourism sites. No illegal wildlife trade is tolerated under the present administration. 643 different animals were confiscated and retrieved. Criminal cases against these perpetrators will be filed. After 6 years, containers of garbage from Canada were shipped back. The shipment had been misdeclared as recyclables. Open dump sites nationwide were closed. Materials recovery facilities were constructed. Sanitary landfills were constructed and operationalized to ensure proper management and disposal of solid wastes. The government embarked on a National Rivers Restoration Program. 16 rivers nationwide were identified as with most improved water quality. The Lamut River in Ifugao, Calbayog River in Samar, and Manaba River in Bohol were recognized as the top 3 most improved rivers. 65 water bodies were newly adopted by private sector under the Adopt an Estero Water Body Program. This makes a total of 585 water bodies adopted nationwide. In 2018, the ambient air quality in highly urbanized cities in terms of particulate matter 10 is still within the air quality guideline value. For Metro Manila, PM10 levels passed the air quality guideline value. Motor vehicles remain to be the major source of air pollution in the country. Hectares of mined-out areas affected by mining operations have been rehabilitated through planting in various regions. To promote the use of renewable energy, about 48,000 units of photovoltaic solar home systems were provided to households nationwide. A little over 1,000 units of photovoltaic street lighting were dispatched and installed nationwide to energize the sitios off-grid, which are not connected to the distribution utilities of electric cooperatives. More than 3,000 tons of oil-equivalent energy were saved through the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Program. It has deferred a little over 1,500 megawatt capacity, equal to the consumption of 396,000 households. It avoided release of 7,102,146 metric tons of carbon dioxide or the construction of a new power plant. Tibay ng infrastruktura. To reduce risks and the potential for disruptions from calamities, resiliency of critical infrastructure needs to be enhanced. This will help in the swift and more effective response to recovery efforts of the government. This will also support the continued provision of essential services to businesses, governments, and the communities. Billions of pesos were spent to rehabilitate various infrastructures to ensure their safety and resilience. Among the rehabilitated infrastructures were in Mountain Province, Pampanga, Negros Occidental, Region 5, Northern Samar, Biliran, Leyte, and Surigao. Infrastructures and disaster risk reduction, DRR-related equipment were provided under the Assistance to Municipalities Program. These included several numbers of evacuation centers, small water impounding projects, DRR-related equipment, and flood control projects that have been completed nationwide. To reduce flood subsidence time from 1.5 hours to 20 minutes after rains, pumping stations in Metro Manila are continually operated and maintained. Under the master plan for flood management in Metro Manila and surrounding areas, billions of pesos worth of investment will be allocated to construct structural mitigation measures. To date, a total of 96.65 billion pesos worth of flood mitigation intervention projects have been programmed. Through the ongoing construction of Pasig-Marikina River Channel Improvement Phase 3, flood inundation will be reduced by about 18% and flood damages by 14.3 billion pesos. For the ongoing Pasig-Marikina River Channel Improvement Phase 4, flood inundation will be decreased by 75% and flood damages by 68 billion pesos. Other ongoing flood management and mitigation projects are being completed in the Cagayan River, Imus River, Tagoloan River Sub-Project, the ongoing construction of 3 bridges and repair of sluice gates along the low-lying areas of Pampanga Bay will reduce flood depth from 1.4 to 2.9 meters to 0.6 to 1.4 meters and shorten flood duration from 66 days to 17 days. The ongoing improvement of 31 kilometers of latent tide embankment from Barangay Diit, Tacloban City to Barangay Ambao, Tanawan Leyte will protect around 33,185 houses and buildings from storm surge.
Malaki ang pangamba dahil sa pag dumarating yung mga kalamidad ay parang silang natatakot. Sa ngayon, sa programa ng ating Pangulong Duterte, pinagbigyan po kami, lalong-lalo na dito sa aming bayan. Malaking tulong at malaking pagbabago ang aming naranasan.
Yung tide embankment po, malaking tulong po yun, katulad po sa amin ng mga fisher folks na parang maanuhan yung pangkabuhayan po namin. Parang maprotektaran po yung pangkabuhayan po namin.
4.29 billion pesos were allocated to retrofit critical bridges in Metro Manila. Mga pagkilos sa Mindanao. Mindanao is known as the land of promise because of its rich biodiversity and natural resources. The land holds an incredible wealth from nature. However, Mindanao is affected by climate variability. It is warming, with the areas in the island registering higher than the average temperature in the past 63 years. Typhoons were more frequent in Mindanao more than a century ago, even a few decades back. Damage to agriculture of 800 million pesos covering 14,749 hectares and affecting 21,439 farmers was brought by El Nino in March 2019. The affected areas include Western Mindanao, Northern Mindanao, Central Mindanao, and Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. Due to El Nino phenomenon, the water level markers near the mouth of Agus River, lone outlet of Lake Lanao, has been decreasing and reaching its critical level. The 70% electricity supply of Mindanao is affected as the Agus River supports 7 hydropower plants of the National Power Corporation. Over 600 million pesos worth of loan assistance were released in Mindanao under Production Loan Easy Access plea. Thousands of small farmers and fisher folks were granted loans through 55 partner lending conduits. 47 million pesos were released for the 4,613 small farmers and fisher folks affected by Typhoon Vinta, Tropical Depression Auring, and Marawi crisis under the Survival and Recovery Loan Assistance Program, SURE. To ensure adequate production of food supply, solar-powered pumps were installed in the affected areas of Davao del Sur, Davao del Norte, Davao Oriental, Davao de Oro, and Barangay Biwang in Bagong Bayan, Sultan Kudarat. 10,513 units of 10 watts peak solar home systems and 13,862 units of 30 watts peak solar home systems were installed in households in various provinces. Billions of pesos were allocated for the flood risk management projects in Cagayan de Oro to construct 11,928 meters earth dike, gates and drainage outlets to preserve and develop 110 hectares of natural retarding basin. River restoration program in Mindanao is being pursued, such as Insilway River in South Cotabato and General Santos, Tumalag River in Cagayan de Oro, Nabok River in Davao de Oro, Tumaga River in Zamboanga City, and Bislig River in Surigao del Sur. The restoration of the rivers will improve 65% supply of the freshwater requirement of the downstream and adjoining municipalities. Flood hazard maps of 25, 50, and 100-year scenarios were generated for 23 provinces in Mindanao through the GeoSafer Mindanao program. Mga kababayan, hindi na pag-iiwanan ang Mindanao. The Duterte administration supports climate and disaster-resilient development for the whole country. This is the CCAM DRR Cabinet Cluster Reporting.